Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here, and today I'm going to share with you 10 tips and tricks that I have come across over the years that has helped my life as an artist. So my first trick is for those of you who have the bad habit of accidentally dipping your paintbrush into your beverage while you are working. And that is to use a travel mug or a thermos or even a water bottle, something with a lid on it, while you're working. That way there, you don't have to worry about dipping your paintbrush into your drink. And it also lessens the chances of you accidentally tipping your drink over and it spilling all over your artwork and ruining all the hard work that you put into it. Number 2, if you are working in oil especially and you don't like harsh chemicals to clean your brushes, such as turpentine, I suggest a product that I really love. It's called the Masters Brush Cleaner. And I actually love it so much that I went out and bought the classroom size because that's how much I use it. This is great stuff. It works well for watercolor, for acrylic, for oil, and it leaves your brushes in better condition than they were before. And this company also makes hand soap, which is awesome. It has like a pumice kind of feel to it, and it gets acrylic off your hands and oil and everything else. It cuts right through it. They make a stain stick too, which is awesome, I must say. And for those of you who don't have the money to necessarily go out and buy a new product like the Masters, I suggest using something like Dawn dish soap. It works wonders, even on oil brushes. Dish soap is made to cut through grease, so it actually really works well when trying to clean your oil brushes and trying to clean oil paint off your hands. Same thing with shampoo for the same reason. These are cheap alternatives and you have them around your house. It may take a little bit longer than if you're using an actual brush cleaner, but they won't damage your brushes over time and you can get the job done by using dish soap. The next tip that I have is for those who get right into their drawing or painting for long periods of time and then end up with hand pain after. So what I usually do when I've been working long hours and I don't even necessarily realize that I'm in pain until I'm done, I usually will run my hand under warm water. The pressure from the water massages my hand and the warmth helps with the pain. And if it's really severe pain, then I use a rice sock. And I actually have, we all have old socks that we don't want to use, or socks that their twin has been stolen by the dryer monster or whatever, so one that doesn't have a pair. So I just grabbed an old sock and I only put a little bit of rice in it and it fits perfectly in my hand, so I can massage it around. I just microwave it for a few minutes and massage it around in my hand. Not a few minutes, that would probably be really hot, but more like a few seconds. But anyway, and then I just massage it around in my hand and it really helps with the pain. So number 4 would be to use an old candy tin to store your palette in between use, so that way there your paint doesn't dry out. This is specifically for mostly for acrylic artists. I know a lot of people like to use the Stay Wet palettes, and you can buy a Stay Wet palette, which would work really well, but there have been some alternatives that I have used over the years that haven't worked really well, mostly because acrylic is prone to molding. So in the past, I have tried using the paper towel technique, where you take a container, you wet a paper towel, and then you use something like wax paper as your palette, and then you store it in the fridge in between sessions. But I have always had problems with mold growing that way. With this, I just took an old candy tin that I got for Christmas. It's large enough that it fits my palette, so I just take my palette and stick it inside like this. And I keep the freshness paper, which clearly I have painted on as well, like most things in my house that has paint on it. And I just spray my acrylic paints before I put it in the fridge, put the freshness page down over it, and then close it up and stick it in the fridge. And the reason why I like the tin so much is because it also makes me feel comforted to know that my paint is not going to be coming in contact with any food while it's in the fridge, because I obviously don't have a separate fridge just for paint. So this works really well. And bonus, you also get to eat the chocolate first. So that's another reason why I love it. So number 5 would be to lay your brushes flat while you're storing them. There's a couple different reasons why. I don't like to leave my paint brushes in my water too long, while in between while I'm cleaning them, because it will warp the brush over time. So you also don't want to store them that way either, for the same reason. And I don't like to store them straight up, because any water or any leftover paint will run down into that barrel. It will gunk up over time, and it can also rot your brushes if the moisture is trapped in there. So just to be on the safe side, when I'm not using my brushes, I lay them flat. I have a drawer where I lay most of my brushes, and it just helps them keep their shape and prolongs their lifespan. So number 6 is a tip for when you're starting a new project. Whenever I do my preliminary sketch, I like to do it on a separate piece of paper. I do this because it ensures that I'm not going to ruin my more expensive paper while I'm trying to work out the preliminary stages, so I can erase as much as I want, I can rework things as much as I want while I'm working out the composition on things. So usually I have a bunch of cheaper sketchbooks around, and I do my preliminary drawing in those, and then when I am happy with the drawing, I will transfer it to my more expensive paper or my canvas before working on it. That way there I don't have to worry about eraser marks showing through or old sketch lines that I didn't want still sticking around underneath my original, my final artwork. So number 7 actually kind of goes along with number 6, and this is for those of you who prefer a grid. I like to do my preliminary sketches when I'm trying to do something very accurately. I like to do it on a grid, and it helps a lot with accuracy, especially since I have astigmatism, so I tend to draw things a little bit slanted. The grid kind of helps me keep in line. Now, that being said, because I have astigmatism, I do not have an easy time drawing a grid. Usually my lines start going diagonal. So to try and curb that problem and to save a lot of time, I work on gridded paper for my initial sketches. So this one is by Ben Feng. I honestly do not know how to pronounce that, so I apologize. And it comes pre-gridded. It has, actually you can see one of the projects. It's from the painting that's up behind me. It comes pre-gridded, and they are 1-inch squares, and they it actually has little tiny grids inside the grids too to help with accuracy. And this has saved me so much time, because like I said, the worst thing that's probably the thing I have the hardest time drawing is a grid. So that saves a lot of time. So I recommend just getting some grid paper and then transfer it, once you're done with your sketch, transfer it to your actual drawing paper. My next tip also has to do with accuracy. And this is to try, when you're trying to draw or do your preliminary sketch for accuracy, it helps to actually have your board, your drawing board, almost like straight up and down, vertically. I am a big fan of putting my artwork in front of me and drawing over it, but then when I straighten it, it tends to be a little bit more warped or skewed. So, I mean, you can see, if you have a painting straight like this, it's more accurate, but as you start leaning it down, things start to get skewed and a little bit more warped. And you don't realize it when you're working on a piece, but then after, I tend to realize, wow, something's really off about that. And I've discovered over time that that's what it is. I know it can be awkward. Like I said, I'm more of a fan of leaning over my piece to do it. But really, it's much more accurate if you have your artwork vertical in front of you and it's right face to face with you, as opposed to part of it facing away from you, as far as perspective goes. And it also saves a lot of backaches. That's another very big tip on that one. So if you want accuracy, I suggest having your artwork as straight up as possible, either working on a drawing board on an easel or leaning your drawing board against something, or obviously when you're painting, using an easel really helps. Number 9. If you are someone who does not have a studio, which at this moment I am not working in a studio, I actually lean my drawing board against my coffee table and draw on it that way in the middle of my living room, because I'm in the process of setting up my own studio. So at the moment, I do not have a studio. And that can be difficult because obviously most of us are not the only ones living in our house. We have pets, we have other people. We can't necessarily leave our art supplies lying around. Like for instance, I have a dog who, he is awesome, but he likes to chew on things. So I don't want to leave my pencils laying around for him to try and snack on. But it's also difficult when you're in the middle of a project and you have all these colors that you've already used. It's difficult if you put them away every single time in between your drawing sessions, and then you have to find them again. So what I do is I just keep a pouch out, just a pencil pouch, and when I'm working on a project, I put all the tools that I'm using the most, all the pencils I'm using the most, right in there. Now granted, it's not the most organized, but at least they're separate from my other pencils, and I don't have to dig through all the rest of my pencils again to find the colors that I was using. They're all set aside for me, and they're safely zipped up, and I put it up on a shelf where my cute little doggy can't chew on them. Okay, so number 10 involves when you're working on a piece and you are struggling with something and you think something is off, but you can't quite figure out what it is. So we've all heard of the mirror trick on turning it upside down. For me, the mirror trick doesn't work well because I have astigmatism, so when I look in the mirror, I can see that things look warped to me anyways. So that doesn't help me, but what I have found, has helped me figure out when things are wrong is by taking a picture of it. So that kind of helps you come back to it with fresh eyes. I don't know what it is about it, but whenever I'm in the middle of something and I've been staring at it for hours, if I take a picture of it, I can more easily tell what's wrong with it. And if all else fails and you're really struggling, put your artwork away for a couple days if you have to. Turn it around, put it against a wall, put it in a place that you can't look at it for a couple days, and then really come back to it with fresh eyes. And I promise it will not be as bad as you think it is. It can be really hard when you're really into something, to figure out what's wrong, and things can drive you nuts, but really fresh eyes, it's the best way to come at it. Okay, so those are my top 10 artist tricks. I'm sure I'll probably do a couple more videos as I think of more tricks and hacks. So I hope that helps you, and hopefully you learned some different things that you haven't tried yet. Thanks for watching. Bye.